Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If it's your first time joining, thank you. If you're one of my previous subscribers, welcome back. If it is your first time joining my channel, you have more than likely purchased the Ripple Effect quilt block pattern from Red Thread Quilt Co on her Etsy shop. And in purchasing the pattern, you will have found two different video links that take you to my YouTube channel. The first one will be a tip video on how to cut the octagons for the quilt block pattern. And I have those all cut here. And I cut everything ahead of time just to save a little bit of time in this video tutorial. But I highly recommend that you go and you check out the tip video on how to cut the octagons first before you complete watching this video. So that video is going to show you how to cut them. She also has two different methods in her pattern to show you how to cut them. So there's three different options for you on how you can cut your octagons, and you can choose whichever one's going to be easiest for you. Okay, so to cut your octagons, you are going to need some type of a measuring gauge. Either a seam gauge like this one. I'm going to move this aside so we can see everything here. So this is a typical style of seam gauge, and this little red part will slide up and down the ruler to let you measure, and you'll measure between this point and the red point here. So this one is usually a typical one that is more common. So there is also this type of measuring gauge, and you can find these on Amazon. I have found that you can get a 2-pack for around $5, and I purchased mine on Etsy. No, I'm sorry, I purchased mine on Temu. And this little seam gauge actually has 19 different measurements on it. So there's 9 per side, and you just flip it over and and you just have more. And you can see that it is not cardboard. You can hear that I just dropped that there. And this is actually made of, I believe, aluminum. And you will, like I said, 9 different measurements on this little gauge. This is one of the things that I have used in my last 4 quilts, I believe. And it has really helped me get accurate cuts when I am working on a quilt. I have also used it for machine embroidery and things like that. Okay, so you are going to need those in the video for cutting the octagons. You will also need some type of a marking pen or a fine leaded pencil. These are just the Mark Be Gone water soluble or water erasable pens. And then some type of nippers, some type of a rotary cutter, and your cutting mat. You can also use a rotating cutting mat like I have here. I purchased my cutting mat, it's been over a year ago, and I keep forgetting to use it because I am so used to just cutting and turning things on a regular mat. But the cutting mat does actually save a lot of time when you're cutting a lot of pieces. So if you have one, I would highly recommend using it for this project, because you will be doing, you're squaring up of your blocks and cutting your little dog ears on the little block portions. These are called your little dog ears, these little points here. Okay. So with that being said, you're also going to, if you prefer some type of like your straight pins, or if you have the, let me show you here, the little clips for holding your blocks together. So I purchased these. I don't know how long ago I purchased them, but I forget that I have them. I need to put them in a little dish to where or just leave them out so where I can always see them. So those. I found that I didn't really need to pin my seams very much because this quilt goes together so easily It is like, I wouldn't say effortless, but it is very, very easy to put these quilt blocks together. Okay, so you are also going to need some quilting rulers or a quilting ruler. I have multiple sizes here because it's just what I have in my inventory and what I use quite often. The main size that I would highly recommend, if you have a 12 by 12, I would recommend using that. And that is mainly for squaring up the block at the very end. You will need a large ruler because the block does finish at 11 inches. And when it is assembled to other block, finished block size is 10.5 inches. So you will need a large one to square up. And you can trim up your blocks using the same size, or if you have a 9.5, the smaller ones, I have used the 6.5, the 4.5, and my little 2.5 inch ruler. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let's set that one aside. I'm going to move these aside, and I'm going to tell you some of the important steps that you have to do first before constructing your blocks. So if you are going to be making multiple blocks, I would recommend that you cut everything first. I have everything cut for a total of 24 blocks. I do have either 5 or 6 already made. So I plan on making a full-size quilt or at least a large lap blanket. Okay, so I will not be giving you quilt fabric measurements because if you have purchased the pattern, you will know that already, okay? So what we are going to do is you are going to first have 4 different fabrics. Hopefully you have everything already set aside and ready to go. You are going to cut everything. I have everything marked by the letter, and I highly recommend as well that you read through the pattern so you can familiarize yourself with all the different pieces and the cuts. So as I'm referring them to you, you will know what I'm talking about. She does have a page at the very end of the pattern. Let me scroll to that. Here at the very, very last page, page 10, where you can cut out, you can print and cut out for your labels. This will be your, this will be your actual, each cut will be A through N, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be the sections as you're assembling it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I am going to show you each piece, and then from there, after I show you each piece that you're going to need, we are going to start some assembly. Okay, so piece A will be a square that you cut, and then you are going to subcut that piece into 8 half squares, or I'm sorry, 8 half triangles. So you're going to have 8 of these little pieces like this, and this is going to be your A fabric. Okay, so you'll have 8 of these. So when you cut them, that's what they're going to look like. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and stack those back up. And then what you're going to do when you have your square, like I said, you're going to subcut them into the 8 little triangles. So that's going to be A. Your B fabric is going to be the small octagons. And I'm sorry, you guys can't see that. It's going to be the small octagons like here and here. And I have those already cut just to save us some time. If I spent all the time cutting everything, we would have over a 2-hour long video. So I did pre-cut everything just so it makes it a little bit easier for you guys. Okay, so that is B. Then you are going to have C, which is going to, I'm not going to tell you the measurements again, so, but we have fabric C, and this is going to be a background fabric piece. You're going to have D, you're going to have E, and you're going to have, it's going to be 4 squares that you subcut again into triangles, and there's 4 here in each stack. So that is going to be E. And I have all mine here cut up. Then you are going to have F, which is going to be, you're going to have 2 of the squares, and then you're going to subcut those into octagons. And that is what that one will look like. And I have my stack here. Then you're going to, fabric G will end up looking like that. H. Then we have I. And J is going to be another square piece that you will end up cutting into triangles. And when you cut these, you will have 4 triangle pieces. And I did have everything cut already, but what I did is I went ahead and assembled everything ahead of time to save some time in the video. Then K is going to be your large octagon. I hope I haven't been saying hexagons this whole time in the video. Oh boy, I hope not. Okay, so it's going to be your large octagon, and I have went ahead and cut them all. So that's going to be K, and J and K will go together. Then we have our fabric L, fabric M, and then N. N was going to, it was a square that you subcut into triangles, and then for that piece you will end up getting 2 different triangles. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, we're going to set everything back aside, and that way we have some room here for everything. And that way when I do start assembling everything, I can show you everything a little bit easier. Okay, L, M, N. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you is your first step that you're going to do is you are going to take your fabric piece A and you are going to sew them to your small small octagon B. And what those are going to end up looking like, when you can see the octagon underneath there. And when you have all 4 pieces sewn, that's what that will look like. And I am going to take one piece and I'm going to just show you how you will sew each piece on. So when your octagon is laid out, it's better if you have a straight side up instead of at an angle. It's just a little bit easier to kind of orientate yourself that way. Sorry, I had a problem with that word today. Okay, so you're going to take one of your little triangles. You will need 8 pieces because you are going to be sewing 2 different octagons. Okay, so you're going to take one of your triangles and you're going to match it up to one of the sides, like so, and take it over to your machine. And okay, so when I sew pieces like this, I always have like a little piece of a leader fabric. And that's just so my threads don't get knotted up when I first start sewing. Because in a part like this, it can get kind kind of like a thread nest really easily. So, okay, so what you're going to do is you are going to sew 4 triangles to your octagon. So it'll be on this side, this side, this side, and this side. Okay, and you're going to do that twice. So that's where the next one will be, and then the next one, and the next one. And that will give you an octagon that looks like this. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your octagon. Let me set those ones aside. Oops, sorry. You're going to take that one. And these little pieces here, these little triangle pieces, can you see how they are over the fabric? You can either take a ruler and you can line those up, and these are called dog ears, and you are going to trim them off so it gives you an edge like that. Or you can take your nippers or a pair of scissors and trim off each little dog ear. Don't cut the octagon fabric, and you can see that like that. And you're going to do that all the way around. Okay? And what I like to do when I am making a quilt, I like to chain piece everything. And that's what I did with my large octagons. I chain pieced everything, and it just kind of makes things move a little bit smoother. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like when you have them all cut off. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pieces. This is where I say that the chain piecing comes in handy. That sew everything together first, then take everything to your machine and press it. Because after each step, you are going to have to press your seams, because it does make for accurate piecing after you have everything assembled. Okay, so then what you're going to do is, let me see how she has mentioned in hers. Okay, so she says trim off your dog ears like I have. Then what I have done is I have taken all my pieces over to my wool pressing mat, and I have pressed the seams. And what you want to do is when you're pressing, you want to press all the seams to the inside of the octagon. Okay, and that is when you're pressing each one, and that's what that is going to look like. And you have them all pressed in towards the octagon. Okay, so that one's that, like so. And what I have done is I have then went and squared up my block, and I just take it, and it will tell you in her instructions, on the assembly instructions, on what each piece should be squared up to. Okay, so make sure you check all your pieces. And I have 2 of those ready here. Now what I'm going to do is, our next step is you're going to take one of, this is section A, section B. You are going to take a section C, like this, and you are going to sew it to the section AB. Okay, and the way I liked doing it is I liked having this piece at the top when I sewed it together, or when I sewed it together, and that way I'm making sure that I'm not flipping up my seam allowances on the other piece. And I'm going to lay those together and sew those, and Okay, and that is what that looks like there. And what I did is I took, after this portion, I pressed my seam down to the white piece, okay, down to this portion. So it was going to look like that. And there is, this will be section number 1. Then you're going to take your next block, or your next AB section, and you're going to take fabric D, and you are going to sew it to the next AB section. Let's do this. Make sure everything lines up well. Okay. And I am sewing all these pieces with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, not a scant 1/4 inch, but a regular full 1/4 inch seam. Okay, and again, I'm just so much in the habit of using my little leader piece. You don't always have to use it, but I just get in the habit of doing it. Okay, so then you are also going to press this seam down to the white fabric, and I'm going to use my little, if you don't have one of these little seam rollers really come in handy. I think I either purchased mine off Temu or Amazon. I have a couple that I purchased from Temu, and they were really cheap plastic, and I absolutely hated them. So I think I just have them tucked in a drawer somewhere, and I don't really use them, mainly because they don't feel comfortable in my hand using them. Okay, so this is section. So we're going to put B over here. We're going to put A back over here, so we get those out of the way. And this is section 1, section 2. Then our next one, what we're going to do is you are going to have your F, which is your medium size octagons. And of course you will have to trim off your dog ears as well. And you can see how these ones are a lot more easy to see. And again, just trim them all off. Come on, that one's stubborn. And you will be pressing your seams the same exact way as the small blocks were, the small octagons. So again, I will show you on here. And of course with an iron, you will get some better, I highly recommend doing it with the iron, because it just kind of sets the seams a little bit better than what a roller does. But for the tutorial purpose, we will just do this just so you can see. Okay, so that is what that one will look like when you have your seams pressed. And you can see how I have them all again pressed into the center of the octagon. And when you have that trimmed up, you will trim that up to the size that she says in her instructions. And that's what that looks like when it is all nice and trimmed up. And you will be assembling 2 of those pieces, like so. And we have those here. Now what you're going to do is, this is kind of, each piece here is going to have two little steps to it. So for section 3, you are going to take one of the G pieces of fabric, like so, and you are going to take one of the I pieces of, one of the G and one of the H pieces of fabric. Okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to sew one at the top and one at the bottom. So I will do that now. And again, I like having this fabric to the top just so I know that my seams on the octagon portion remain flat while I am sewing it. And again, I would be chain piecing all of these together just so it goes a little bit faster. Okay, so that is what it will look like when you have the G fabric attached. Then you're going to take the H and sew it on the opposite end. And this block really does go together quite quickly. The thing that takes the longest for this block is to cut your fabrics. Okay, so there we go. So now when you press your seams on this one, you are going to press them towards the backing fabric. Okay, so I'm going to do that here. And that is what that portion will look like. So we're going to set that aside here. So we've got section 1, 2, and 3 already complete. You just have 2 more sections to go. So we are going to take the other medium octagon, and now you are going to take a piece of I, and I'm going to take one that I don't have pinned. You're going to take a fabric I and another piece of fabric G. Whoops, I forgot to grab G. Okay, and then we are going to sew those as well. And I just realized that I do not have enough pieces of my fabric G cut, so I will have to cut additional pieces of fabric. Because I forgot it goes for both pieces, section 3 and section 4, and I just cut enough for one. And I just lifted my presser foot a little, so I made sure that that seam of the octagon laid flat. Okay. So, and then I'm going to just press like so. Hopefully you can see those okay. And then I am going to take section I and attach it here at the bottom. Do it on this one. Okay. Okay, so I now have, I'll be pressing it towards the white fabric again, And that is what section 4 looks like when complete. We will set that one up at the top. And now comes a fun one. I really liked this portion. You are going to take one of the K pieces that you have assembled with the J, like so. And I have it all trimmed up, and again, I have it all pressed toward the center of the octagon. And I have one of those here that you can see that I have J all attached to K. Again, you're going to cut off all your dog ears, press your seams, and we'll set that one aside. And that's what this looks like when complete. Now what you're going to do is you are going to take a fabric L. So one piece of fabric L. You're going to take a piece of fabric M, and we will be attaching these. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your fabric L and you're going to put it at the top of the octagon. And okay, so you can see on this one just a little bit, I got my seam just a little bit wonky there, but that's going to be okay because it will be on the darker side of the fabric. Okay, so when you have fabric L sewn at the top, this is what that will look like. Then you are going to take fabric M and you are going to put it on the right side. And of course you would be pressing the seam as well on that portion before you attached this one. My fingers don't want to work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sew that one. Making sure my pieces are aligned. Okay, and then I'm going to open it up, and again on my seam will be pressed towards the background fabric. And that is what your section 5 will look like. Okay? So now what you're going to do is, if you haven't pressed anything yet, you would take it to your iron and press everything. I'm going to pause the camera. I'm going to take it to my pressing mat. I'm going to press everything and I will be right back. Okay, so I have all of my pieces pressed. Then what you want to do is you want to make sure that you pay attention to the very last step for each section in assembling the sections of the block. And what that's going to do is you are going to square up each piece. So I'm going to go ahead and do that really quickly. I think I can... Sorry guys, I think I can do most of it with this one, with my 9.5 inch ruler. No, I cannot. So I am going to use my 12.5 inch ruler to square up. And I'm not going to mention what the sizes are. You will have those instructions in the block. So I'm going to just do these really quickly. This one is just a little bit off in the short way, so I do not want to in any way trim this one up because it is pretty good except for one little portion, so I will have to fudge my seam a little bit on that. Okay, and this one, make sure. Okay, that one's good as well. I do not have to square up that one either. If you cut your fabrics accurately and you did precise your 1/4 inch seams, I have found that this pattern goes together so easily that I have only literally had to trim maybe 1/8 of an inch here and there, and that was basically on me. So okay, I'm going to switch over to this one now. And one, two, where's my measurement? Okay, now for this particular piece, I do think I need to trim up just a little bit. Did I? Yes, okay. So this one I just need to trim up just like literally now let's line it up correctly. Oh, that's funny. Okay, so I'm going to trim off this one, and I just want to make sure that everything looks really good. Okay, and I mean that side didn't really need to be cut, but okay, so I got that one trimmed up, and then my next piece I'm going to trim up as well. And trimming up your blocks really does help you achieve a nice, accurate block. Okay. Let's see. And that one looks really good as well, so I didn't even have to trim that one. And this one, okay. Okay, this one just needs about like less than 1/8 of an inch. That's all I had to trim off on that one. And I mean, it wouldn't really have made a lot of difference. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we are going to start assembling our sections. Let me clean this little bit here up and just get this out of the way. Now what we're going to do is we are going to move on to assembling the block itself. So we have our 5 sections assembled. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now is where also your last 2 pieces of fabric N will come together. So make sure you have those. And you are going to need a ruler for this one. So I'm going to have that there and ready. And what you're going to do is, I'm looking at my instructions here off to the side. We are going to attach section 3 to section 5. So you're going to take 3 and 5 and you are going to piece them together so they will look like that. So I'm going to go ahead and you can pin these together if you wish. I found that it was just such a small section that I really did not have to pin it. And I'm going to make sure that my seams lay nice and flat and in the correct direction. That way when we do our final quilting, we don't have a lot of seam bulk. Okay. And that is what that's going to look like. Okay. And you will also want to press towards section 5, which was this one. So you're going to press your seam so it faces this way to section 5, like so. And that is what your seam should look like. It will be pressed towards the large octagon. Okay. And I'm just going to press this off camera really quickly. I have my iron still hot. And you are also now going to make sure you square up your piece again. Like so. And this is just going to give you nice accurate pieces. And mine is maybe 2 widths of thread off, and I'm okay with that. So we're going to leave that. Now what you're going to do is when you have section 3, 5, you are going to attach section 4, which is this one here, section 4, to the bottom of section 3 and 5, like so. And we are literally almost completed with this first block. It goes together so quickly. I really love how simple this block is. And again, like I said, just the hardest part was cutting the fabrics, getting them, it took a while to cut the fabrics if you are going to make multiple blocks. But like I said, it is better to cut them all at one time. And I, again, if I failed to mention earlier, I am using a fat quarter bundle. And I found that I can get multiple blocks per fat quarter. For some reason, it looks like my thread is twisted on the needle really quick. I'm going to just rethread that needle really quickly. I don't know how that happened. I'm surprised I didn't get any needle break or anything like that. Okay, pop my foot back on. Come on. My faff machine just has the snap-on feet. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you are going to press towards section 3 and 5. So it's going, your seam will be pressed to this portion. And I'm going to press that really quickly. And sorry, I am doing this off camera. My camera does not go wide angle enough. Okay, so that is what that seam is going to look like. It's going to be pressed towards that section. And this is what after that step looks like. Now what you're going to do is you are going to take section 1 and you are going to attach it okay, yes, section 1 will go to the left side of, this was section 3 and this was section 4. So now it is going to be attached here, just like so. And this was the little seam here that was a little off. So I'm going to just have to fudge that seam a little bit. And this portion's going to be more like, instead of a 1/4 inch, it may be just about a little less than a 1/4. But it's not a whole lot. So I want to make sure that I get my piece down here lined up. And it's just going to be maybe less than 1/8 of an inch off. Maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to sew at this side first, so that way I know my seams will be okay. Making sure I get it all just right. Okay, so that is what we look like now. And this side, you are going to press this seam towards section 3 and 5. So this seam will go this way, like so. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and press that. Okay, and that is what your block should look like so far. And again, we pressed the seam towards 3 and 5, and I just need to press that piece down just a little bit. Okay, lay down. I want it to go down. Okay. And then we are going to take our last section, which is section 4, and you are going to attach it to 1 and 4. Actually, this was section 2, I'm sorry. So you're going to take section 2, attach it to the bottom of 1 and 4. And we are almost complete with our block. And make sure we are all lined up correctly. Okay, so now this is what your block should look like. And you are going to take your last piece and you are going to press in the same directions as your other seams and square up. So I'm going to press it this way. And sorry guys that I have to press off camera. It's just a little bit easier. And a little bit quicker to do it off camera. I could take the time to film with another camera with this pressing of the seams, but it literally would take a couple minutes for each time to do that, and overall it would add probably 10 minutes to the video. And just to keep the video a little bit more time manageable for you guys, I'll just do that off camera. Okay, so right now that is what our block should look like. And in the instructions, again, it says that you are going to square up. And in the instructions, okay, so this is where you are going to actually take your large 12.5-inch ruler, if you have one, and you are going to square up your block. And I just want to stand up for this because I want to make sure I get the top in as well. And my block is almost right on. There is, this side looks really good, but just this side right here a little bit, I just need to trim off about 1/8 of an inch. And that was it that I had to trim off. So such a small piece that I had to trim off, because these cutting instructions, and if you maintain an accurate 1/4 inch seam, that is how easy this block goes together, because it is just, we've got the measurements down for you guys so well on this block with me testing it and reporting back to her and making sure that we get a really nice tutorial for you guys for a block that goes together so nicely. Okay, so now comes in our last 2 pieces of fabric. This is fabric N that you subcut from the square into 2 triangle pieces. Now what you're going to do is you are going to get a ruler, and you are going to go at the bottom left corner, and you are going to measure like this. So you want your ruler, and you're going to line it up at 2 inches, okay? So then you're going to take your pen, your marking pen, and you are going to put a mark at this side, right here at this 2-inch mark, and you're going to put a line at this 2-inch mark, okay? So just like that. So let me show you what that looks like. So you're going to have a mark here and a mark here. So 2 inches from the corner, and then up 2 inches from the corner. Then what you're going to do is you're going to flip it around, and you're going to do it at this side too. So at this top part of this octagon, you're going to measure 2 inches as well and mark that too. So 2 inches and 2 inches. Okay. So a 2 inches from, you go 2 inches from the left to the left and 2 inches down, and you will make a mark. Then what you're going to do is you are going to take your ruler and you are going to draw, you can either draw a line or you can just take your cutter and cut it right off like that. Flip it around, cut off the other side, just like that. And these 2 pieces, you can either put them in your stash or you can throw them away. Then you're going to take one of your triangles from your end fabric and you are going to get it up there enough. And you're going to sew that piece on. And let me get my little cheater. Make sure that's lined up. And I do still want to make sure that my existing seams are going to lay correctly. And you're just going to want to sew those pieces on. So your first corner will look like that. Then you're going to open it up and trim, make sure that you have your fabric lined up to the edge correctly and to this edge correctly. It looks good, so I'm going to trim off that dog ear. A couple pieces that I did do on the trial pieces, I didn't line it up correctly and I got my seam off just a little bit, so I had to pick it off and redo it. And if you are familiar with quilting, you will know that Jack the Ripper is our little friend here. And if you're not familiar with the term Jack the Ripper, it is your seam ripper. I know a lot of the quilting groups I belong to on Facebook, we affectionately call it Jack the Ripper. And trim off my little cheater piece. Open it up, make sure everything looks good. It looks pretty good. I'm going to cut off my dog ears. I'm going to take it over to again and press my seam. And you are going to want to press the seam. It doesn't say, but I'm going to press my seam towards my pink fabric. Okay, and I just want to flip it over and do a really quick press over everything. Make sure everything looks great. And there we go. You have a complete ripple effect quilt block. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I do say gentlemen because I do have some male followers on my YouTube channel, and I want to thank you guys for actually subscribing to my channel. I know it is not often heard of that males are into quilting. I do know some big names in quilting, but I do appreciate all the males that have hit that subscribe button on my channel. Okay, so again, ladies and gentlemen, we have a complete ripple effect quilt block. If you have not purchased this quilt block, again, go to Red Thread Quilt Co. on Etsy and purchase the quilt block pattern. And she has multiple different layouts. And I believe when you are on her Etsy page, you will see some of my blocks and then some of her blocks and a couple different little layouts. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think of this block? I hope you have fun with it. I know I really have had a lot of fun working on this project with her. And we have another project coming up in the future, so I hope you guys stay tuned for that one. And we will see you guys very soon. Thank you, and goodbye.